You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth. I also like to think that I'm your guide along this journey of purpose, which is where you will hopefully end up at the end of this podcast. I'm a mom, a wife, a daughter, a friend, an entrepreneur, an advocate in the fight against human trafficking. I wear a lot of hats, y'all, but don't we all? And most importantly, I am passionate about inspiring women to go out and lead purpose-filled lives while owning your God-given power. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Hey guys, welcome back to The Power Project. Guess what, you guys? Today is my birthday. Okay, not today while you are listening to this, but actually yesterday when I decided that I would record this special birthday edition podcast episode. I've been looking forward to this episode literally the entire year. When we were rolling over to 2020 and everybody was talking about hopes and dreams and aspirations for 2020, it had so much weight and meaning for me personally because I remember as a kid, back in like 5th grade, we had these magazines that were these highlights magazines. Anyone my age, kids of the 90s, remember these. And in those we would read, and there would always be some little piece of what it would look like in the future and what things would be like and what we would experience. So I distinctly remember that we were going to have flying cars in 2020. I remember there being such a hype about the year 2020. And back then it seemed like so far away. I could not even imagine myself that far in the future. And if I'm being honest, I kind of can't believe that we are at 2020. I can't believe we're already halfway through April and that it's my birthday today, my 38th birthday. This is the year that I will never forget. And while I was thinking about all these things in 2020 and all the things I was excited for, I couldn't wait to do my last decade review for my 38th birthday on the show. I thought, how incredibly great would this be to be able to share where I have come from in the past 10 years, what I've accomplished, what I've done, who I was then versus now. And I had zero clue that I was going to be spending my birthday in lockdown, stay-home orders, in the middle of a pandemic, a global health crisis, an economic crisis. Like, that's insane. And today is a fantastic day. The sun is shining. I had fresh oysters delivered to make for dinner tonight. My husband sent me flowers. It's an amazing day. I love birthdays and I love celebrating people. But I would be lying if I said that this birthday is easy. And it's all because of what I had built it up to be, what I had built this episode up to be, what I would say in my 10-year review of who I was and what I had come from, and the fact that 10 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I was barely keeping my head above water. My 1-year-old did not sleep well at night at all for like 17 months. And I just know that he wanted to be held all the time, and he cried if he didn't want to be held. And I was just constantly feeding and cleaning and nursing and changing diapers, which actually, if I'm being completely honest, doesn't seem completely different than the way today has been. With my 11 and 14-year-old, I'm still find myself in this place 10 years later where I am cleaning and feeding and yelling and getting onto kids. And that's where we are today. But in the midst of me being that stay-at-home mom, I loved being home with my kids. I loved it so much. I loved being able to do everything for them and spend that time with them that I'll never be able to get back. I'm so grateful for that. But at the same time, I was searching for so long for something that was my purpose, my calling. I knew that I was meant to be the mom to these kiddos, and I knew that God had blessed me with that so much. I don't ever want that to to be taken away from. But I also knew that he had something else that he wanted me to do as well. And so back then, being at that point, I thought I had missed the bus. I thought it was too late. I thought that I was not going to do anything outside of my home and my family. And that's why I was so excited to bring you this episode today, because I thought, how cool is it? I can tell this stay-at-home mom that's sitting at home with a dream in her heart that 10 years from now, she can be doing what I'm doing with teenage kids and really walking in purpose and really having found what it was that she felt was possibly missing all along. And right now, this month should be a whirlwind in my life. I should be on this episode telling you that we just launched my book, that we've launched it in person and online, that I'm doing appearances and speaking engagements and book tour and signings. And while I knew that that was all halted because of the current situation that we are in, I hadn't really processed exactly what I'm going through. So I went through this phase where the book tour, the conference, everything all within 1 week was put on hold because of our current situation. And while I grieved that in the beginning, I went through a process of a few weeks where I thought, okay, I am really sad. I'm really anxious. I'm really fearful. We've talked in the podcast here about how I dealt with my anxiety and leaned on God and prayed and dug into the Word. And then I gave myself a moment where I thought, maybe I just need to sit still and rest for a minute in what is going on. Maybe I need to give myself some grace. Maybe I need to realize that I've been running so hard and so fast that this is my rest period. So I did. I leaned into resting and started doing deep scriptural study on resting and felt like I caught my breath. And I went through the phase of we're all, going to go broke. We're all going to die. We're all going to go broke and die. Then I went into the let me rest period. And then after that, I caught my breath and I thought, okay, now I'm ready to be creative. I'm ready to be productive. I'm ready to start brainstorming again because I've just been in this limbo place of what do I do? If I'm being completely honest, I know that I want to move forward, but you guys, producing this podcast every week and putting a newsletter out each week is basically as much as I've been able to do. I've not been able to really focus on moving forward, and I didn't realize until last night the gravity of everything that I'm going through because I hadn't verbalized it. I knew that the hat company had been put on pause right when we were ready to pull the trigger on moving forward into the next phase. I knew that everything had been put on pause, but I didn't realize how much my achiever self was so floundering because I have spent the last almost 5 weeks at home making sure that our family is healthy and safe and loved and our home is happy and the food is on the table and we're taking care of our immunity and we're drinking all the water and we're exercising. We're doing all the things. But yet I didn't realize that I had become so accustomed to truly achieving. And there's this thing that when you know that you're being obedient and you know that you're following God's call, as an achiever for myself, I have to remind myself that I don't always have to keep making the next level or checking off the box. And I didn't realize this until I started talking last night. And I started telling my husband, look, I am so accustomed to what it is that I do outside of this house that I don't know how to be inside of this house and still doing what makes me tick. And I think the best way that I can possibly explain it, I feel like I've heard multiple people reference this, friends and acquaintances, and I feel so much the truth in this statement. I feel like I'm floating, and not floating in a relaxing manner, like in a float on a pool with a Mai Tai in my hand. More like I'm floating in this place where it's a glimpse into my life 10 years ago, but it's not the life that I have been accustomed to for the past few years. My kids are older now, and while they still need me, they are fully capable of doing their online work, feeding themselves, doing what they need. And they're good with that. But every time I think I'm going to be productive, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to sit down and come up with a plan for the book, come up with a plan for the next step in business, come up with a plan for that course, that coaching course that we had been working on that came to a halt. Every time I do, I sit down and I stare at the computer and I just feel like I am floating because I don't know what the next step is. I feel like I need someone to literally give me direction, point me in the direction, tell me this is the step that you take. Feel like a jellyfish. Stick with me here. Like the jellyfish is just like beautifully floating along in the ocean. And it has this power that it holds within that, you know, it can sting and ward off prey that way. But in order for something to be stung by the jellyfish, to feel the power, that thing has to put itself directly in the trajectory of that jellyfish. Like the jellyfish is not reaching its tentacles out trying to sting people, but if you collide with it, you'll get stung. I so hope you guys are following along with me here because that's what I feel like. I feel like I know that I have this power. I know that I have this purpose. I know that I have these skills and these gifts that God has given me, but I don't even know which direction to reach them out to try to share that power with others. And so as I verbalized that last night and I realized how much I am feeling really aimless and really like directionless, it doesn't have to do with not having accomplished things at this age, because I feel like I have grown so much in the past 3 years. And I've, in the past 10, I've become a completely different person in the best way possible. Like I've stepped fully into who God created me to be. So it's not about that. It's not about a lack of accomplishment or a lack of direction or a lack of following God. It's just this limbo that we all find ourselves in right now. Do I know deep down, do I know in my brain, in my heart, in my mind, in my body, in my soul, do I know that this is God's plan, that none of this has caught him off guard, that the businesses will take whichever direction he wants them to go? Do I know that my book will take whichever direction he wants them to go? Absolutely. Do I know that this is all part of the journey and part of the process of following his call for my life? 100%. But it doesn't make me feel any more confident in the floating place that I'm in right now. So I decided, as I was ramping up to have a bit of a pity party last night, while I kept convincing my husband that I'm really not sad. I promise I haven't been sad. Things have been okay. And I was processing the feelings that I was going through and what it looked like and why I felt that way. I decided that I would take a page out of my own book, literally. And in my book, my 38-year-old self tells my 19-year-old self everything is going to be okay. Hopefully, one day, my 76-year-old self will be able to remind my 38-year-old self today that it all turned out great. Because my 19-year-old self went through life-changing circumstances. We experienced 9/11 at 19. Much like this crisis, this situation that we find ourselves in, we won't come out on the other side like we went into it. Things will change. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a little insight into the book. I'm going to read a chapter out of my book, which is a conversation with my 19-year-old self, just because I personally need to be reminded that this is all part of the plan. And I hope that you can take something from it as well. A conversation with my 19-year-old self. At 19 years old, my mother became my mother. She was a baby with a baby. I remember 19 as being one of the most confusing times of my life. I remember struggling with failure and disappointment. I remember experiencing plans being shattered. I remember processing true heartbreak for the first time. I remember grieving the loss of a close loved one for the first time. I remember turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms. I remember knowing there was a big call in my life and no clue how to fulfill it. I remember the utterly lost feeling. If I could, I would go back and let 19-year-old me know just how life turned out. She was a bit of a hot mess back then and could have really used a mentor to speak into her. So if you will, oblige me for a bit while I tell her that she's going to be okay. Hey guys, if you've considered starting a podcast, but you're overwhelmed by how to actually launch, I've created a basics of podcasting course over on Skillshare. So you can sign up for my course and get 2 months of free premium membership. Skillshare is where I learn all types of skills that I don't know how to do otherwise. I'll include the link in the show notes. You can head over to Skillshare and search Brandy Voth's class, The Basics of Podcasting. Dear 19-year-old me, it's going to be okay. Trust the process. God has this beautifully designed plan for your life. I know you've heard that before, but trust me, your mom and grandma and aunts and teachers are right. God is in control, and His plan is so much better than you could ever imagine. I know that you have big plans in life. I know that you freak out when things don't go according to that plan. But it's okay. He's got you. That boy that just broke your heart, the one that your parents warned you about, the one you planned on marrying one day if you ever slowed down from your college and career goals. Let him go. I know it hurts. I know you gave him a piece of your heart and trusted him with it, but it's going to be okay. God has something so much better for you. God is going to bring someone into your life who not only makes your heart race, but is so supportive and loving to the core, you will lie awake at night staring at his face, thinking how lucky you are to have married your best friend. Your love will grow so great for each other. You'll hope and pray you get to know each other as husband and wife in heaven, because you can't imagine ever being without him. This man will love you so deeply you would never question his intentions or love for you. This man will encourage you, support you, stand beside you, lead you when you are weak, and let you lead when he is. He will listen to you dream. He will dream with you and understand everything about you to your very core. He'll look at you with eyes that are full of adoration, respect, and endless love. You'll feel him stare into your heart each and every time. When it feels like you are alone on an island and the entire world is attacking you, he will gladly stand on that island with you. He will pull his sword out and go to battle for you against anyone and anything that comes against you. He will not just have your back, he will stand in the fire with you. He will brave the battle as long as he knows you are by his side. He will stand in the shadows and silently support you in every situation, regardless of how many people may be in a room or how far apart you may be from one another. You can lock eyes across the crowd and have a full conversation that lets you know you are the most beautiful and amazing woman he has ever met. His arms will be the safest, warmest, most comfortable place you've ever laid your head. His embrace will be your favorite place on earth. You and he will grow deeper in love each and every day for as many days as God blesses you with on this earth. You'll live by the motto that a man doesn't make you strong, but the right partner makes you stronger. Those people that you've met at college who don't look like you, believe the same as you, or sound like you, it's okay. You can be friends with them. You can even love them. You're going to make many new friends over the next 18 years. They are going to come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and beliefs. You get to embrace and befriend every single one of them. You even get to love them. You learn from them. You become stronger in your faith by having them in your life. You get to extend love and grace to them. There will be a day when your circle of friends doesn't look like only white, middle-class, Republican, Southern Christians. There will be a day where more of your friends have criminal records than don't. Because of your friends, you get to learn how Jesus loves us, both horizontally and vertically. You get to be in relation with Jesus and then share his love with all of his people, not just the ones that look and sound like you. You get to share Jesus with your new friends and your old friends. You get to learn Jesus can live inside each and every one of us, whether we look the part or not. You get to learn from your new friends and become a better person because of them. Oh, that diet of ramen noodles, raviolis, chocolate milk, pickles, and Dr. Pepper, it has got to go. Don't worry though, you become quite the culinary connoisseur. And I hate to break it to you, but you break up with Dr. Peppers. I'm not saying that you won't ever have a sip of that sinfully sweet, syrupy nectar of the gods ever again, but you refrain from it 99.5% of the time. However, you do have moments of weakness, typically in the middle of summer when it's too hot for coffee and you're just craving something cool and sweet that packs a punch. Oh, coffee. Yeah, you still haven't given that one up. You still like it black, and you still carry around an enormously large mug the size of your head, sipping on it until lunchtime or later. There is this incredible new invention that has completely changed your coffee game. It's a Yeti mug. It stays hot the entire time you're sipping it, so there's no need to go back to the dorm to microwave the bottom half of the coffee. Oh, and as for raviolis, more disappointing news. The last time you tried to eat them was over a decade ago, and for some reason, that once delightful meat filling in the center now tastes like and resembles canned dog food. You just can't do it. As for the ramen, yeah, it got kicked to the curb along with its other friends. It's not a taste thing. It still smells amazing anytime you smell someone making a bowl, like your teenage son who buys it and hides a secret stash of it. But the copious amounts of preservatives, chemicals, and MSG went entirely against your moral fiber. When you do enjoy a piping hot bowl of ramen nowadays, it's made with organic, gluten-free rice noodles and scrumptious bone broth. Bone broth, you ask? I know you've never heard of it. It's delicious, and it has so many amazing immune-boosting properties. I swear it is one of the main reasons your kids are healthy as horses. Kids, you ask? Oh, I'll get to that later. No, take a breath. Don't hyperventilate. It works out fine. Kids are not nearly as terrible as you had imagined. They're actually pretty cool, and you've managed to keep them alive thus far. Chocolate milk has a whole different look to it in your fridge now. The milk comes from a local dairy and is raw milk, unpasteurized. When there's time, you make the chocolate syrup from scratch, and your kids love it. Yes, kids. I'll get there. Although you still love the delicious creamy sweetness of the chocolate milk, you don't drink it because you don't do sugar anymore, really, only in extremely limited quantities on rare occasion. And dairy, well, it's the culprit for those breakouts you keep getting, so we get rid of that too. Powdered donuts. That breakfast has been replaced by a nutritious protein bar. But you totally did not get rid of pickles. You still have at least one a day. They're not going anywhere. You eat a mostly organic diet and have for the past 14 years, ever since you found out you were pregnant with your oldest. Okay, I guess it's time we talk about the kids. Yes, I remember you had big career plans. I know. Undergrad in international studies with a sociology minor and an emphasis in Spanish. 2 years in the Peace Corps, grad school at Johns Hopkins Science, followed by an internship on the Hill and an international career, foreign service, ambassadorship, etc. I know there was no time for kids. I remember. At 23 years old, you found yourself lucky enough to have found the love of your life. Specifically, that guy I was talking about up there. You were lucky enough to be friends with him for a couple of years before the two of you decided to have a relationship. So you knew each other really well and shared a lot of laughs by the time that you were together. You also knew his plans for the future as well as your own. Neither of you really ever planned to get remarried or have any more kids. You have a stepson. He was 10 when you met him. He's super cool. None of those horrific stepmom, stepkid stories you hear about. He's grown now and he is married. He is an amazing human being, a massive blessing. Your relationship with him is one of the things you're most grateful for in life. He is an awesome role model for your little boys. You have 2 other boys, both boys. Yeah, I know, totally lucked out on that one. I mean, have you met a teenage girl lately? So anyway, there you were, in this relationship with the love of your life. You were best friends and having so much fun together. You had a sneaking suspicion neither of you were going to get out of this relationship inside of this lifetime. You spent the days fishing, traveling, and hanging out with friends. And then, well, it happened. You were going to have a baby. Yeah, I know. Yes, you had to tell Nana. It's okay, though. She didn't disown you, and you're still just as close. Closer, even. Not the easiest thing to go through, but remember how I told you about his plan? He knew exactly what he was doing, and he needed to save both you and that amazing man from yourselves. You guys were meant to be a family and spend the rest of your lives together. Remember, God does not make mistakes. Not going to lie, though. You were terrified for the entire pregnancy. I mean, you actually enjoyed every single second of being pregnant. Since you had never really planned to have kids, you did what you do best. You educated yourself. I can't tell you how many books you read. You had decided that if you were doing this, you were going to do it well. At one point, your doctor told you to quit reading books about what to expect when expecting and start reading books about what to do when the kid gets there. In the first few days that you brought him home, you, your stepson, and your husband stood around the bassinet just staring at his beautiful little face while he slept. You just sat there thinking how unbelievable it was. You could have so much overwhelming love for a person you just met. While you were deep in thought about the miracle of life, your stepson popped up with, "So we just stand here and watch him sleep? Is that how it works?" And at that point, you realized that you didn't have to know it all raising kids. You would just learn as you go. Oh, and that little boy, he is amazing. He loves his mom so much. He's taller than you now. And the little stinker is good at every single thing he tries. Seriously, it's kind of annoying. He's this incredible athlete. That's the coolest thing about kids, though. They're these incredible individuals with their own talents and skills, all their own, that you get to sit back and watch develop. I told you, it's not nearly as awful as what you had imagined. Actually, you ended up loving it. It felt like the best job you had ever had, and you wanted more. You wanted lots more. You loved having and raising babies. You and your husband went back and forth about this for about 18 months. You wanted another baby, and you really wanted a little girl. And then your sweet baby turned about 17 months and became the most active, curious little stinker ever. And you decided you were fine with just the one. He was plenty to keep up with. You dropped it and moved on with life. Until one day, a few months later, your husband walked in the door and informed you that you guys should have another baby so your son would have a playmate. You, of course, said okay and hoped and prayed for a little girl. You even followed the instructions in the book, How to Choose the Sex of Your Baby. You dreamt of your little girl and had all these amazing girl names until you went for the sonogram and found out she had a penis. You asked your doctors what on earth you were going to do with 2 boys. And she told you it was going to be great. They were going to love each other, be playmates, and they would have a best friend for life. And she was right. Being a boy mom is the coolest thing ever. You get to spend your days watching baseball, basketball, and football games. You spend weekends at dirt bike races, which is your absolute most favorite form of family time. Dad's the coach, and it's an entire day of forced family fun. You love it. Your kids, they take after their daddy and they can ride anything with wheels. Your little one is quite possibly the cutest child to ever walk the face of the planet. He's just as every bit as stubborn and hard-headed as you, your dad, and Pawpaw, not to mention his daddy as well. Poor kid, he didn't stand a chance. He did, however, inherit the natural-born leadership skills that both you and your husband possess, and I know he will do great things in life. He's a deep thinker, and he has a huge heart. His love language is gifts, and he loves spoiling others with them. He's hilarious as well. He was born 40 years old, and kids have always annoyed him. Sound familiar? He's incredibly business-minded and drawn to purpose and helping others. I can't wait to see what he does with his life. So yeah, you took 10 years off from everything else in life and focused on staying home with these boys. You make healthy, fresh breakfasts for them almost every morning and pack their lunches still. However, at 13 and 10, they've started mostly packing their own lunches while you oversee or edit the contents. You've spent countless hours homeschooling them for pre-K, volunteering as class mom, taking snacks, all homemade and organic, of course, to their class parties, riding along on field trips, volunteering as Cub Scout leader, and teaching Sunday school. Oh, college and career. You want to know what happened there. Well, remember how you've always been incredibly driven. What did that counselor in high school diagnose you as? Oh yeah, type A, OCD, perfectionist. Well, about that. It turns out while you were always encouraged to follow your dreams and chase your goals, someone should have taught you about self-care. I mean, I don't know if you would have listened or not, but it turns out you can't run 90-0, burning the candle at both ends without taking time to get your mind, body, and soul right. You just can't run around pouring from an empty cup. So you know how you were taking 20 hours of classes, interning 10 hours a week, working on campus 15 hours a week, and off campus 20 hours or more? Well, apparently you're destined for a burnout. Sooner rather than later, actually. You end up freaking out, dropping out of college, and walking away from a really large scholarship. This following that breakup you just went through. And then, right after dropping out of college, the nation was rocked by the first terrorist attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. You watched your country go to war with an unknown enemy in an unknown location. You yearn for justice for the 2,996 people that senselessly died at the hands of terrorists, while at the same time doubting that this was the way to handle it. Certainly the bad guys needed to be brought to justice, but it seemed like there may have been a lot of unnecessary harm and devastation done to innocent bystanders. You watched people stereotype and classify every single Muslim as a terrorist, but you knew this couldn't be true because you had just spent time closely with so many good ones on your college campus. You knew that you couldn't judge an entire culture of people based on some bad ones. You reminded friends and family that the OKC bombing was a white American guy, but they weren't having it. You watched fear grip the entire nation and let fear grip you as well. You became scared of flying. I know you can't even imagine it. You love flying so much. You slept like a baby on a plane before you watched 4 planes full of men, women, and children be hijacked by men wielding box cutters and flown into buildings filled with men, women, and children. You yearned so deeply for justice and protection, but wished for war-free conflict resolution. Remember how you prayed as a little girl during the Gulf War that there would be no more war and people could solve problems without bombs and killing people? You ended up praying that same prayer again at 19, 20, 21, 22. The whole experience left you questioning the political system, people as a whole, and feeling grateful that you had avoided the career path you had formally planned for. However, that didn't take your passion for people away or your desire to do big things on a big scale. It's okay that you quit college. You felt like a huge failure, but it is okay. It worked out great. Just wait and see. Remember that whole God's plan thing? He's got you. I know you feel like a huge failure. I know this was your first experience with failure. I know that you felt like you let your family down, your teachers down, your professors down, the scholarship donors down. I know that. I remember that you were voted most likely to succeed. You were going to be the first female president or something like that. But sit tight. It gets good. I know you never intended to be a stay-at-home mom, but man, you rocked it. You had that mom game wrapped up. You still do, if I say so myself. Remember that perfect idea you had of a house perched on a cliff, overlooking the water, where you could sit and write, gazing out at the water. You're sitting in it right now. You're watching the rain fall, listening to it drip off the gutters while you watch the drops splatter across the lake. You are in your dream home. It's not in Hawaii, but it's pretty darn close. You have an incredible husband who busted his tail and took care of you for those 10 years that you stayed home with kiddos. You never wanted for anything. You carried all the nice handbags and went on all the once-in-a-lifetime vacations, but something was missing. You knew there was something else. You knew there was something bigger. You just couldn't get out of your own head and see it didn't have to look like what you had envisioned. It didn't have to look like your previous plan, but you do fulfill your purpose. You now use your voice to speak into others, empower and inspire. You have a successful business. You mentor traffic survivors, inspire women to own their power and follow their purpose, and you contribute to fighting injustices at a global level. You did all right, kid. As it turns out, quitting college didn't take your purpose away from you. You took your purpose away from you. But thank goodness God didn't give up on you. So dear 19-year-old me, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. God has got you. What an awesome reminder this is for me right now, because I once again feel like I am just as lost and just as floundering as I was back then at 19 in a whole different level. And I have to remind myself that this is a journey that God has laid out for me, and each step along the way is a stepping stone that He would have me take. And I have to remember to walk with God, to trust the path that He is leading me on, and to know that He has gone before me to prepare this way. This morning I meditated on Micah 6 and 8, and it is that we should do justice, love kindness, and walk with God. So I want to encourage you all today to know that this is a step along the journey, but we are walking with God. Hey friends, I hope that you enjoyed this episode today. I hope that you enjoyed the sneak peek into the book. And I promise you that I am back in this thing, and I will have this book available at your fingertips very, very soon. I just needed to take a pause for a moment as I felt like the world was turned upside down. If you did like what you heard, you can go to the-powerproject.com, sign up for the newsletter to stay in touch with everything that we have going on with the book launch, and also be the first to gain access to the book. Also, have you joined the Power Squad over on Facebook? That is where we are doing an inside launch of the book with my own personal hype squad. Can I ask for a birthday favor? Can you go write a review and share us on all forms of social media? Give us a rating. We'll take 5 stars, you guys. I can't wait to chat with you next week. But until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.